Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Anchor Watch. I'm your humble host, Bobby Jones, along with the executive producer extraordinaire, Sam Osterhout. Sam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing? We had a long weekend. I know you always laugh.
Yeah, we
when
did,
I
and I
know exactly what you're thinking.
I took a week off for travel and family stuff, but man, you miss a day, you miss a lot around here. There's so much to get into, both internationally and domestically. We should start off with the latest with Iran and the latest lines that are coming from the administration, and then we'll start working our way domestically. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who don't know, the United States Central Command, the military organization in charge of dealing with the Middle East, said that they conducted strikes in self-defense, and this will have no impact on peace negotiations. The thing that jumps out to me very quickly, Sam, and let me explain what they did. They were talking about there were fast attack craft that were dropping mines, laying out mines, and they had to take them out in order to protect themselves. They also took out some shore batteries that had air assets that could shoot down our manned flight apparatuses, whatever. And that's fine. That's dandy. Sure. But understand, how is it, Sam, would you expect to be able to have a negotiation on peace when you are constantly getting just hit upside the head consistently? It's like you're in a schoolyard and the bully is telling you, I want to talk about peace, but you're consistently getting slapped in the face. He says he wants to talk about peace. How would that affect how you view what's going on in your little negotiation?
I mean, Bobby, this is the question I have for you, because it doesn't seem like an actual authentic strategy. I think right there's a sort of burn it all strategy of bombing your opponent into compliance, right? This isn't that. This is a continuous sort of bombing. It feels like it's meant to show strength or might, which in their world seems like it ought to translate to better negotiation, a stronger hand at the table. It's not, and they don't have a strong hand. They have no hand. And Rubio said we're days away. I should show that clip, and then I want to get your take on what is that strategy.
Anything with something like take a couple days to settle on, even down to the disagreements over a word sentence. So we'll have to work through that.
Yeah, that we're a couple of days away, and we had this guy saying this.
Heard about this deal? Would you support?
Hold on, our assets are running weird.
It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not too far away from where Pompeo is, to be honest with you, and I support what Chairman Wicker says. Look, we were told about 11 weeks ago by Hegseth and the Department of Defense that they had obliterated Iran's defenses, and it was just a matter of time before we had the nuclear material. Now we're talking about a posture where we may accept the nuclear material remaining in Iran. How does that make sense at all? Also, a 60-day ceasefire and expecting that they're going to clear the Strait of Hormuz before the terms of the deal are established also seems questionable to me. There are a lot of things that need to be explained. And as I've said before, any agreement with Iran that isn't subject to ratification by Congress is I think, going to be doomed to fail, just like the agreement we're trying to replace, which was the failed agreement by Obama.
And there we have it.
Well, number one, it's amazing. These Republicans who have announced that they're not running for re-election, all of a sudden are doing their congressional duty. I think that's quite amazing, even though it's delayed. That being said, he's 100% right about his take. I guess my thing, what has changed fundamentally since the first week of this conflict that makes Rubio say that, hey, we're days away from an actual agreement. And then on top of that, how is this agreement going to be better than what existed prior to February 28th? Those are the two major questions that I need to have answered that I don't think he can answer.
No, I mean, go ahead.
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. If the United States agrees to a deal in the next week, let's just call it that, the next week, I guarantee you it is going to be a worse deal than we had before we started this at the end of February. The other thing that I can guarantee is this: from now on, the new world order will be Iran gets in international affairs. Their nuclear deterrent is the Strait of Hormuz. That deterrent did not exist prior to February 28th. Okay. When I've said this before and I'll say it again, when we talk about nuclear deterrents, we talk about countries that have nuclear weapons. None of them have ever been overthrown, either from outside forces or internal forces. That's how powerful nukes are on the global stage, which is why countries fight to get them. Iran has been denied that capability and has stumbled upon the capability of, oh my gosh, we control the world's economy. And they never would have really thought that through. They had theories, but they never really would have thought that through until they were forced to do this. And so now their nuclear deterrent is different than every other country that has a nuclear weapon. You know why? Because theoretically, if a nuclear weapon is detonated in Tel Aviv, Moscow, Paris, London, DC, you know what? The nuclear fallout is only going to really affect that country. When Iran hits their nuclear button, which is shutting down the strait permanently, the entire world will feel the effect. The entire world order is thrown into disarray. And so why would they give up that newly found power, especially to a country and a man who's gone out of his way to, in their minds, pick on them? Why would they? Why would they? So that's where we are when I'm like, okay, Rubio, make that work. Tell me how that works.
So what's Iran's play right now? What do they do?
This is what I think Iran's play is. They're going to get, not ask for it, they're going to get an easing of economic sanctions. They're going to get some form of reparations, and thanks, Teresa. And on top of that, they're going to establish a new world order that, in order to extract their natural resource, oil, from where they are, you're going to pay a surcharge to do it, either in a toll operated between them and Oman, which those negotiations are taking place and they're still ongoing, or their restriction of the oil flow, which will make the demand go up and everybody pays a higher price. It may be a combination of both, but make no mistake, they feel wrong because they've been bombed repeatedly, right? They feel betrayed that their neighbors helped the United States do it. And they want the West in particular to suffer, even though most NATO countries are like, hey, we got nothing to do with this. They have a blanket way of looking at this, and I don't blame them, right? So Iran's play is, you're going to pay to rebuild us. You're going to pay a permanent price moving forward, and you're going to respect us because we have our hands on our version of a nuclear weapon. That's the way forward, and we're going to give it to them because we as Americans will not be able to deal with $6, $7, $8 per gallon gas permanently. That's it.
So let me ask: what does Trump? What token can Trump bring back and say this is what we got? Is there anything?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I don't think so. I don't think so. This is what he's going to do, because I've been trying to figure this out for the longest. How is he going to sell this to the American people? He's going to say, we reduced their missile inventory. That's the first thing he's going to say. We've wiped out their Navy. We've wiped out their Air Force. And then he's going to say, basically, that they do not have the capability to create a nuclear weapon, even though the enriched uranium will still be there, right? Even though there are no sanctioned inspectors who go allowed into the country, he's going to say, based on our intelligence and this, that, and the other, which goes right in line with Tulsi Gabbard being forced to resign, the director of national intelligence, this past week. Because in order to sell this lie, the intel people have to be in on there. Or have to be in and back this. When they were asked by Congress before this all started, they were like, no, we don't believe that's the case, that Iran's going to have nuclear weapons. Now, to sell the lie, they got to get Tulsi Gabbard out the way and try to put someone in there who will lie and say, yeah, we took out the nuclear capability, blah, 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 but we haven't done a goddamn thing. That's what
it's going to be tough when the intelligence agencies of other countries step forward and say, no, it's bullshit. The nuclear capacity was, never existed in the way the United States claims that it existed.
Right.
Patrick in the chat says basically something like, we might be the house in the casino, but it's a Trump casino, so we're losing.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be set up to win, and no matter what is happening, we're losing. And they can sit there and talk about military success. Are you still paying $6, $7, $8 for gas? Can you pull any of your ships into anywhere in the Persian Gulf? Can you land your planes confidently in the theater without worrying about them being shot at? So please, again, I'm a basic dude. When it comes to military stuff, I'm a basic bitch. Please explain to me how that's winning. That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. And I can't find anybody to give me a coherent answer of how that means you're winning.
So over the weekend, Trump said he doesn't care about gas prices. The price of oil is peanuts, right? He said.
Right.
We do care about the price of gasoline, and it's skyrocketing. And I wonder, as Americans fall less and less in love with this war that was never been popular, right? Like when they launched this war, it was less popular than Vietnam at the end. It is not a popular war. He's not a popular president. His poll numbers are tanking. And we can talk about, I think we should talk about Texas, because those numbers should be in. Everyone in the chat, keep an eye on the numbers in Texas coming out in the Paxton race. And let us know if you see anything. So we can talk about how he's bringing America down internally and domestically all we want, and we will. We'll talk about that too. But this also, with Iran now in the driver's seat internationally, nobody wanted that to happen, right? Probably Russia wasn't super keen on having Iran there, even though they're allies to some degree. How does this put these pieces, the global pieces, back together for us over the coming decade?
Right.
What does the world look like without it?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because I think one of the things that is criminally being underreported or looked at in mainstream media is Russia and China. People are like, oh, well, they're allies of Iran. They don't want to further divide up the world leadership pie, if you will. It's already divided three ways: United States, China, and Russia. Now you're slicing in Iran. Make no mistake, Russia is the big threat, and they like to focus on Europe more than Asia because they have ceded that to China. China focuses on Asia. The United States focuses on the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, whatever. But now you have to take into account Middle East and everything that's there. Iran has demonstrated that they can strike any country in their region, right? They have hit every basic Arab country that has a U.S. base in it, and they did it relatively easy. And the defense that the United States was supposed to provide did not occur. So that means they're the big dogs in the Middle East now. There was doubt about that. It's not Israel, it's Iran, which is why Israel wants to continue to fight, because they just realized all of this has shifted despite their best intentions. Okay. Now, when you think about this 10 years down the road, right? there are always the projections of how much longer all these oil reserves are going to last, how much the natural resource of oil is going to last, and depending on who you talk to, it can be 80 years, 100 years, whatever. The thing is, as the world tries to shift its energy policies to a more freedom, recurrent, natural replenishment, renewable energy, etc., you still have dinosaurs like Trump who still believe in that J.R. Ewing model of how the world is supposed to work when it comes to oil, right? And because certain parts of the world have not made that strategic shift to go to renewable energy, like, for example, Germany has made that pivot, countries like that. But you still have countries like in Africa, in Asia, Russia, depending on what section you're talking about, that overwhelmingly, relies on that regular crude oil gas model. They will have influence on the next generation of human beings on this planet. That's the most blunt I can say it. You're not going to be able to talk economics or energy policy without considering Iran. Period. You couldn't do that really if you were thinking about it before, but you sure as hell can't do it now. They have more influence on the oil market now than OPEC does.
That's wild.
Because they have demonstrated that it is wild, because they have demonstrated a military capability that the other countries have no counter for. So OPEC tries to set the oil market. Iran can be like, I'll shut down the straits and tell you what you're going to charge.
Yeah, right. Because it's not tactics, right, Bobby? It's logistics.
It's the logistics.
You know where I heard that?
You may have all the, you're learning, because here's the thing, you can get all the oil you want out of the ground. If you can't move it to where it needs to go, it doesn't damn matter. It doesn't matter. If you can't take the raw material and get it to refineries and then get it to where it needs to go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so when Trump is like, a deal is near and this, that, and the other, you can't still move the oil where it needs to go without, people freaking out. You don't have the insurance companies believing that they can send tankers through. You still have oil pipelines that are exposed to actual drone attack. And on top of that, while you're supposed to be negotiating with these people, you're blowing up stuff on their soil. I don't understand. I don't know what part of the game this is supposed to be, but this is a significant problem. And Iran has been a thing before the United States, for thousands of years. And their mindset is, we will endure. Yeah, we will endure.
I wonder, just to kind of sit in the energy conversation just for a second, because our world is based, our civilization is built on the deployment of energy, right? The consumption and deployment of energy to build things, to grow food. I think Patrick another good banger comment from Patrick talking about how gas prices are bad, but it could be fertilizer, it could be food, it could be food supply, it could be all of those things that really start to take their toll over the long term. I wonder if this will look. Spain has just announced that they are producing some of the cheapest energy in Europe because 10 or 15 years ago, they started to make a transition to solar power that everyone thought was crazy at the time. Like you said, Germany, their energy mix is increasingly renewable. Look, the conservatives, they all say like, oh, well, if the sun's not shining, you don't have energy. But yeah, if the tankers aren't cruising, right, you also don't have energy. Is this going to hasten our conversion? Because we have real fucking problems to solve, man.
Well, I think it's a few things. Number one, and Postcard from Home, she asked a question that I think ties into this. She's basically asking, okay, what does this mean, regarding, China's investment, in Africa and stuff like that, because China is actually the ones 2 steps ahead. Africa is going to become a significant player because of this. They were already on their way. But number one, you got to take in the historical context of how Africa has been treated by the West. Extract, take, rape, pillage. And there was nothing Africa could really do. We have seen since this thing has started, We saw France sit there and try to reject Nigerian oil because they finally have a refinery there, and they rejected it because they didn't think it was pure enough. There was too much sulfur in its breakdown. As soon as February 28th happened, France was on the phone trying to get Nigeria to bring that tanker back, and they said, "The hell with you." You have in Africa unbelievable untapped resources that the colonizers, and I'm being very deliberate with my language here, had mistook, mistreated, and thought that they would be able to dominate. When you have these new leaders in Africa, many of whom were educated in the West, who know the game, look at Burkina Faso, look at Nigeria, look at Angola, that's what the West needs. They're not just going to give it to them. They're now going to trade at fair market value. So now the continent that has been the most abused in human history is going to have a say-so in this. And the United States has a president that has gone out of his way to insult those people repeatedly. That will factor in by the end of this year. You heard it here first. Secondly, the fact that China not only knew this and saw this coming and has done for the last 25 years, unbelievable soft power in Africa, building power grids, repairing ports. I was a peacekeeper in Liberia after the Civil War, and I watched the Chinese engineering military arm create roads, help fix ports in Liberia. Why does Liberia matter? It's the home of the world's largest rubber plantation. It was a strategical key in World War II, the Firestone plantation. Google it, okay? The Chinese have figured this out. Right? The United States, because we have a sense of arrogance that I'm telling you this generation has not earned, has not set themselves up for success outside the Middle East. They made a decision to bank on the Middle East, not Africa, to establish ties, financial centers, not Africa, and that's what's going to happen. That also leads to South America because you have the same situation. And because it's in our hemisphere, we have ignored them too. Right? Guess who's been all up and down in South America? China and Russia. The whole BRICS economic alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, trust me, this is a thing, people. And people in America don't know this. And so while the cost of energy, because we refuse to pivot, rises for us, the cost of living continues to rise. Immigration is killed because Trump wants that. And the professionals that are immigrating here, doctors in particular, engineers in particular, don't come to the United States. You're watching the perfect storm of America's economic decline happen in real time. And y'all just don't know it yet. I'm telling you, you cannot cut off resources like we did with Iran, with the ripple effect of there, deny intelligence coming into your communities, into your country. When I mean highly skilled, highly degreed, highly credentialed people, because they don't look a certain way, you don't want them there. Think about it. How many Indian, Nigerian doctors and engineers do you know? I can go down this list, right? This combination of cutting off your nose to spite your face and being arrogant with your immigration policies while your nation is slowly dying, the birth rate is going down. And you have just been shown that your military might is not as what peace. What the hell are you bringing to the table where you feel like you can command the rest of the world and tell them what to do? And that is the fundamental problem that Donald John Trump has brought to the forefront in the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. The empire's over. It's over.
Are we going to stay in NATO?
We will have no choice but to stay in NATO.
You think we're going to actually? Somebody was saying to me the other day that they were talking to a friend in Europe, and the friend, they were saying, "How do you feel about the U.S. vis-a-vis NATO and USAID and not just USAID but aid across Europe, military aid, all of the things?" And they said, "We're not sad about it. We're just moving on." Right.
Exactly.
It's like they've broken up with us, and it feels like at some point, I bet you're right, we're gonna have to beg to get back in the door so they can make us dinner.
Right, and that's it. Because our archaic way of looking at the world. What do I mean by that? President Obama really believed in soft power. Soft power meaning aid to foreign countries, economic distribution instead of military presence. Trump believes in primacy, the big stick theory, right? The problem is when you go into a fight and thinking you have the biggest stick when it's really an overgrown twig, the second it gets hit and it shatters, you have no backup. There's no candy in your pocket to calm people down. In my humble opinion, the United States took the pivot turn where we can't go back, at least not with this administration, is when they closed USAID. USAID, since the end of World War II, basically, in various forms, but since the end of World War II, was the #1 ambassador of the United States of America. And we're from vaccines to medical to food, this, that, and the other. When they closed the door on that, that was my first sign of like, okay, these sons of bitches are stupid, because none of the people that shut it down had ever worked in USAID. They had never been on the ground and seen it. They had never seen how it can literally open the door into places that the average person, American, cannot go, right? And so when I saw that, and then the consistent military action, Nigeria, Venezuela, freaking Iran, basically up to 8 different places we have bombed, 8 individual different countries we bombed in 15 months. That showed that their foreign policy, despite what they put in their national security strategy, is we will bomb the hell out of you because you're going to fear us. And now we're seeing the world ain't scared. So what do? What do you do when you are supposed to be the big bad wolf and you suffer from emphysema? What do you do? And we have no answer. We have no answer. And to be completely honest, the mental state of President Trump, even if he was at his peak, he lacked the intelligence and the goddamn mental acuity of the world to understand what's at stake. And then you see the clowns that he has surrounded around him. They don't know either.
Let's I want to, if I can find it, play this video of one of those clowns.
Last and most importantly, seek God and know that we are not him. It's humbling. It's also liberating. As Charlie Kirk often said, remember always, this too shall pass. The good times will pass. The bad times will pass.
Quoting Charlie Kirk at West Point.
I took this real personal, real personal. And the reason I took it personal, for those who didn't see me on my morning briefing and stuff. So 25 years ago to the day, yesterday, I got commissioned at Annapolis, United States Naval Academy. President Bush gave our speech. Okay. 25 years, 2001, May 25th. That speech was given on May 24th at West Point. Let me explain to you why this pisses me off. Him and Hegseth fights culture wars because he can't win real ones. Full stop. He's incompetent as hell. He can't win. He doesn't know. He can't even keep classified information in the right goddamn device. Okay? Number one. Number two, when he shows he can't win, he pivots to the culture wars to make him feel like he's great, like he's special. Charlie Kirk's name has no effing business being spoken at West Point because those kids are everything Charlie Kirk wasn't. Okay? I don't care about speaking ill dead. No, absolutely not. Charlie Kirk believes that the pilots that come out of that school, if they're black, shouldn't be pilots. Again, my brother's a United States Air Force Academy graduate and veteran combat pilot. Thought my brother, just because he was black, shouldn't be in the position. As a matter of fact, 40% of those people sitting in those chairs getting commissioned as second lieutenants in the United States Army, and Hegseth And Charlie Kirk's mind shouldn't be there because they were either minority or female. But again, when you look at who steps up to protect this country and goes and fight for this country, it is disproportionately minorities. Disproportionately, and has been for literally over 100 years. And this clown, this ass clown of freaking mythical proportions has the nerve and audacity to talk about that. And you listen to the rest of his speech, he basically implies, your identity, not realizing that a lot of these kids who actually made it and survived through there went through hell to get there because of just the way they looked, because they had to deal with clowns like him. But luckily, they really shouldn't have to listen to. I have from very good authority and very good sources. The graduating class at West Point was pissed about the stuff he said.
Really?
They were. Yeah. And if you go back and look at the speech, you ain't seeing much clapping. You're just seeing these kids just like, if you don't get off the damn stage and give me my diploma and commission. That's what it was. And he thinks that there's some sanctuary in going to military bases as a Secretary of Defense, right? When the Gerald R. Ford pulled in after the record deployment they did of 300 plus days, that guy had an award ceremony as they pulled in. For those who don't know, award ceremonies last like an hour to 2 hours. Those kids wanted to get off the ship and go see their loved ones. They had to wait 2 hours for this guy to pontificate, the same guy that basically didn't feed them, the same guy that subjected them to attack, the same guy that turned their asses around and extended their deployment, not once, not twice, but 3 goddamn times. And he thought they wanted to see him. No one wanted to see him. And someone who's been that dude that got extended on deployment 9 months and had to come back. No one wanted to get me the hell out of here. But he's such a grandstander. That's how he doesn't give a damn about troops. Because if you have put on the uniform, when you come back from deployment, you know what I would have did? If I was him, I would have been there. But hey, I would have been giving them high fives. They came off the brow. Get off the brow. I would have ordered the captain, get everybody off this ship who's not on watch right now. Right now. That's how you win people over. But nah, I got to pontificate. Show President Trump that I'm a good little boy. Are you kidding me?
It feels like he's like, I'm going to give these guys the thrill of their life. I'm going to stand in front of them and speak.
Yep.
And leave it to a guy who didn't earn fuck all to talk about how everyone else has to earn their keep. Right? This dude was we have to constantly remind ourselves he was a Fox guy and not a good Fox guy. He was a weekend guy. Right? He was a Fox weekend guy. That was it. And now he leads the military.
He has been
and look where we are.
Second rate.
Second rate all of his life.
Sam, he's been second rate. He's been second rate ever since he had to stand on his own as a grown ass man. Second rate, right? He ran 2 nonprofits into the ground. He was the B team on Fox News. He went and tried to be the most bombastic person. He wrote a book that no one bought. I mean, I could go down the list with this guy. And he really thinks that they wanted to see him. I cannot stress this enough as a former sailor. Them cats did not want to see his dumb ass. They just did not.
Right.
Talking about knowing how to read the room, right? And the West Pointers, they didn't want to see him either. They just want to get their diplomas, go home and see their families and say, hey, I did something that was worthwhile. But instead, he took the opportunity to step on their moment and made it about him. That is rule number 1 of how to be a bad leader, especially in the United States military.
I mean, Amy Gabrielle says, I think he knows he's a loser. And I think that, I think that's it. Because why else would you fixate on everyone else's ability, right? Clearly he's got an issue with racism, right? He's unwell, Hegseth. But you have to be really weak and really understanding of that own weakness to lash out so deeply against people for no other reason than the color of their skin or their gender, right? He's weak.
And not only that, not only is it a weak thing, right? He's so out of touch with the rest of America that he believes by saying this, it's going to make him more popular, that more people want to hear that. But I'm telling you, as somebody who's lived this, as again, the black guy born and raised in the deep South, that even the most bigot appreciates the fact that I serve. They may not like what I do afterwards or take my uniform off, but that bigot that didn't serve, who thought about it, he's like, well, I got to at least respect him. I may not like him, but I got to respect him. And the thing about Hegseth that is so diabolical to me is he's going out of his way to take the dignity and the respect of service members if they don't fit into his little white Christian crusade mode. Like, he's talking about God, this and other. Okay, so if you're an atheist sitting there, what do you do? Because guess what? There have been non-Christians, tons of them, to die for this country. They didn't believe in your God, but they went anyway. The same people who you think don't deserve to be there, one lifetime ago was serving in a military that was segregated, but went and did the job anyway. They weren't like you from, basically white bread Wisconsin, class valedictorian, went to Princeton and kept failing upward. They still found something in this country to fight for, despite having to deal with people like Hegseth. Those are patriots. That dude, he's a perpetrator. It's one thing to fight and talk about, we're going to fight for your rights when you get to enjoy the full litany of those rights. Another thing, fighting, hoping one day you get to actually live and experience those rights. That's why he has absolute nobility with me.
Man,
None.
That's incredible, Bobby. That's exactly right. Jesus Christ, Hegseth, it's got to go. I think this is what is so upsetting to me. I know why he's upsetting to you, but I just thought we were better, right? I thought we were better than that. And I think we can be. But he represents, he's so indicative of what Trump is and what this disease is. And I think as a whole, I feel mournful about it.
I think as a whole, we are better. But I think when you allow certain people to get a megaphone, right? It's like the Pied Piper to your worst instincts. What separates us allegedly from animals is supposed to be this thought process that we can suppress things that we find morally wrong. We develop this sense of morals at a much higher level than any other being on the planet, allegedly, any other species on the planet. But that does not mean those negative intrinsic thoughts are not there. What's supposed to civilize us, our ability to think logically and overcome it. But when you can't think because using logic hurts, or you are too lazy to do so, and you want to just amass power, you go and appeal to the worst base instinct of society. Let me put it to you like this, Sam. We can cite time and time again in history where nations or groups of people have done unbelievably horrible things to one another. And we want to know why. Right? We can count the times where that society does unbelievable great things and change society as a collective. It's usually a few brave people that have to stand up and do it and challenge the humanity of others. Our base instinct, even though we may be good, it's easier to follow our worst thoughts in a lot of cases than to actually fight through and do our best for others. That's the problem. That's where leadership is supposed to come in, and we have leaders that don't do that. It's that simple. Right now, we don't, at least.
No, I think Trump, his motto is, it's too hard. Everything's too hard. Easy. We got to take the easy way out. And the problems that he needs to solve are not easy problems to solve. He's incapable.
There was a comment. There's a comment, and I want to just take a quick second to address this, Sam. Where someone asks, you've heard these comments. This is the last throes of the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America. When you look at the court cases, the redistricting and all of that, I'm going to say something that people need to understand. There is no last throes of the Confederacy. The Confederacy is like a virus that you have to keep in check. It's never going to be eradicated. What you have to do is to continuously inoculate yourself against it by spreading information, knowledge, getting to know your neighbor, and breaking down those stereotypes. But there will always be in this country elements of it. From the time we ratified the Constitution in 1789 or whatever, and the Constitution had the 3/5 compromise in it. The foundations of America have those elements of what became the Confederate States of America from day one. That's why we have this stupid electoral college that we still have to deal with, right? So for anybody to think there's a way to kill this, you can't kill something that is literally part of the spinal cord of your being. So how do you counter it? Each generation has to understand the complete and thorough history of the country, what we did right and what we did wrong. And when we see elements of what's happening wrong, we just like an antibody, we go attack that virus. And every generation, you'll see a different permutation of that virus come up. You know, back in the 50s and the 40s and stuff, it was nigger, this and that, right? But we stopped it. Now it's immigrants, this, that, and the other. We need to stop it. It's going to be something else 30 years from now. You need to stop it. Just like you have to get vaccinated, you have to keep up with your flu shots. It's the same principle. It is a disease of the mind that you need to never, ever sit there and say it's over. That's what it is.
I agree. In my mind. I mean, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think look, the fabric of our society is woven with racism, right? Our economy, our world power was built on the backs of non-white people. It's in us.
That's I saw Matt Walsh post about this recently on Facebook or wherever. He was talking about, everybody, he goes, it's immigrants built this country, settlers built this country. And he's like, they were the ones that laid and planted this and do that. And I was like, Matt Walsh is the dumbest dude I think I've ever seen repeatedly post on social media. I mean, show me you don't know a damn thing about history without showing me you know a damn thing about history. Settlers occupied land. They didn't build shit. It's like, I'm just being flat out blunt with you. The freaking White House where your beloved golden calf sleeps right now was built by African slaves. Okay, the roads that you have now that led to the interstates built by African slaves. The railroads that we took that connected the country built by Chinese forced immigration labor. I can go all day with this, right? But he's going to sit there and give you that Norman Rockwell wannabe picture of the white man on his horse and he's driving cattle. The first cowboys were black and Latinos. You think white men were going to be in the field with animals and do rustles? That shit didn't happen to be popular until the 1940s when they just made up movies. Look, the cowboys were black and brown, dude. I can't with these people.
All the plantations where black men and women worked to grow the crops had been forested all the way to Texas. You know who cleared it? Right? Like every step of the way, every ounce of the work that had been done. And like, look, sure, there were farmers, white farmers in the Midwest and in the Red Bull and Bread Basket,
by the way, Sam, those white guys were just given land. Just here you go. Go west of the Mississippi, put down the plot. You're welcome. Meanwhile, natives are like the First Nation people are like, who the hell are these guys? And why are they here? We signed a treaty.
What?
Right? But we're gonna sit there and act about how trailblazing they were. And here's the thing that people need to understand. They were proud of doing all of this without having to do the labor. They bragged about it in their journals. Yeah. They wrote about it in the news. And what has happened in the second half of the 20th century, where the Daughters of the Confederacy really took over, they tried to erase all of that. But damn, they wrote so much. Alexander Stephens, who's the vice president of the Confederacy, who's from my great state, went out of his way to talk about how superior they were and how little work they actually had to do. But now we're going to act like he didn't say any of that stuff. Man, please. He would say it again if he could. right? So you can't have it both ways. If you want to sit there and try to create history, create it, at least make it sound more realistic. Matt Walsh and Donald Trump and Hegseth and all these guys that are trying to erase that history because it makes you look bad. I'm sorry. They were bad. But it'll hurt someone's feelings if you talk about it. Well, imagine living it, bitch. I'm sorry. I got zero.
It's got to be the title of this episode. Oh my God. Well, Bobby, that's, man, this always gets here. And I think that, look, the thing that fucks me up about Iran and about the changing hegemony in Asia, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Africa, all of these things it's that we could do better. It's that we can do better. And this is self-inflicted. All of this is self-inflicted. The Hegseth stuff, self-inflicted. Why, like you said, why turn your back on 40% of your armed services who are doing real work? That's self-inflicted.
Because the glory is being the leader and being in charge. That's the glory. The glory of being perceived as the guy that is benevolent because he sacrificed for you. Let me tell you something right here, right now. The guys and girls that sign up to do this military thing for various reasons, they need to be recognized for where they come from, because a lot of them come from some rough ass backgrounds. That includes white guys, man. There are some white dudes that I serve with. I'm just like, bruh, they came from some rough areas, and they would not be the picture square jawed person that Hegseth believes should lead, because he believes that that the leadership supposed to look a certain way. I'll leave you with this. The current Joint Chiefs of Staff are all white men. How's it going? How's it going? That's all I'm asking. You can't blame blacks. You can't blame Latinos. Blame women. You can't blame Asians. You can't blame anybody in the minority group for this absolute clusterfuck we're going through, except for one demographic. If you want to keep score, let's keep score.
Bobby, that's amazing. They're so stupid they didn't even keep around a scapegoat. Oh my God.
Nope.
Only have
that's what I'm saying. They did not even have one dude that they could sit there and blame. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, hey man, you can sit there and say and preach and think whatever you want and say it to me. But I can tell you this, you cannot lie when you go and look at these briefs and when you look at these press conferences and you see one demographic in front of Congress, one demographic in front of the press. And then you see in your $7 gas prices in California, $7, $8. Or when you see that freaking fruit, you have to take out a freaking second mortgage to buy in the grocery store, right? You can't blame us. There are no black people, with the exception of the housing urban development guy, and he just made a complete fool of himself last week. There's no black guy in the cabinet. There, I think, is one Latino in the cabinet with the, like I said, HUD and then one other. This is a complete white Christian male operation, because Chrissy Noem, gone. Tulsi Gabbard, gone. Pam Bondi, gone. The labor secretary, gone. Those were the women that were in there. The only ones left is like Linda McMahon. They're slowly wiping out the women first. You think that's a coincidence? Despite Hegseth's performance, you think by Michael Waltz's performance, the UN ambassador, former national security advisor, all of them get to keep their jobs, and they suck at it. They suck at it, but yet here they are keeping jobs, and the women are all gone. Anybody tracking that? Is anybody tracking that? I'm not saying that these women were great, but I'm just asking, is anybody tracking that?
They oughta. It's like the perfect study, right? It's like you eliminate all of this group, and now you can just study a very pristine population of workers and see how check out the outcomes. I love it. I think we ought to keep track.
We ought to, but as these people, and this is the other thing that people need to really pay close attention to, as these people exit the pattern, as we say in the military, as they are getting fired, Gabbard and stuff. He's appointed an acting attorney general. He's appointing acting. That term means something because acting does not need congressional approval to stay in the seat. So it allows him to temporarily put people in place that can be unhinged as hell and not be vetted by Congress. Which is why, have you seen him try to move to make Todd Blanche the permanent attorney general?
Oh, no.
No. Have you seen him try to name a new Homeland Secretary permanently?
No.
No. That is by design, ladies and gentlemen. That is by design. He's doing it on purpose because he does not want to have to go through the confirmation process. The confirmation process right now, everybody he tries to put up, especially on the health side, is getting rejected. So they're withdrawing their names. So understand, he's trying to put more unhinged people in place to protect him. That is the mission of President Trump right now. It's twofold: to protect himself from possibly being prosecuted or going to jail or impeached, and number two, to make as much money as humanly possible while he still has the levers of power in the White House. That is it. The only two things that we know that he's accomplished since he's come back in is his family has made money 3 times as much as they were worth before, billions with a B, and he has successfully stopped all of the Epstein files from being released. Those are the 2 things that we know he's accomplished. Other than that, can y'all tell me what he's accomplished?
He's taking your money.
That's the question I have for you guys in the chat. Right. And now he wants to do a slush fund of $1.776 billion for people who were prosecuted. And did you see who already was trying to claim it? We ain't talking about the J6ers. We're talking about these highfalutin people that donated to his campaign, the My Pillow guy and stuff like that. It's a handout for his boys. Right.
Yep.
So just keep in mind all the stuff you see in the Middle East, all this stuff, that's the sizzle. The steak is what's happening domestically, how he's trying to protect himself, how he's trying to make sure that he enriches himself. And most importantly for him too, because he's so petty, to go after every rival that made life hell for him. That's the threefold mission. That's what he cares about. And that's what's happening. Oh yeah. And the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act is why the Republicans will lose the House and possibly the Senate. If you are living in an area where there has been a hospital that is closed, please speak up. Let people know, because in rural areas, that's exactly what's happening right now. State of Georgia is happening. I interviewed someone in Iowa, one of the Senate candidates, Josh Turek. It's already happened there. It's happening all over the country, ladies and gentlemen. This is the direct results. And mind you, the big, beautiful bill does not kick in officially until after the midterms. But because the medical industry knows the money's not coming, they're already shutting down. They're already shutting down. So, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're at. This is what it's all about. You know, I wish I had better news, a better way to look at this. But the fact that this man is profiting so blatantly on his position in the White House, the fact that we still have never got a tax return from him. Y'all remember he was going to get a tax return back in 2016. No. He wants to actually not be audited forever by the IRS, because
his government has agreed to it. Interesting. Bobby, as we wrap up, what are you looking at for the next week? What do we need to keep our eyes on?
Well, a couple of things. I would normally say look at the negotiations that's happening, but I think that's a complete waste of time. I think what we need to look at is how many more of these skirmishes will be happening in the Persian Gulf, Middle East area of responsibility, because Arab nations are starting to come up with strategies to deal with Iran directly, and that means going to leave the United States behind. Okay. What the Pentagon has not factored into their budget requests on purpose is the cost of rebuilding bases that have been hit, because, to be blunt and honest, they don't know if they'll be allowed to do it. Okay. If that happens, if these countries, because if you notice, these skirmishes that are happening, it's only happening between 4 nations or 4 entities: the United States and Iran trading fire, and Israel and Hezbollah trading. Okay. Israel does not want this war to end, especially not on these terms, where they are no longer the big dog, supported by the big dog, and Iran will be emboldened as hell if they get what they're talking about getting, which will make life hell for Israel, but will also force nations to actually deal with Iran. Trump's all the Arab nations assigned to Abraham Accords. Ain't happening, dude. They're not going to do a damn thing that you want, and they sure as hell ain't going to do a damn thing that Israel wants right now. So I'm looking to see just how many more skirmishes happen in the next week and how the Arab nations respond. Not how the United States or Iran responds. What does Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, especially Jordan, allies we've had for a generation, what do they do when it comes to negotiations? Because that's going to dictate what happens moving forward. And it could be the death knell, in my opinion, of the American empire being able to go wherever it wants to. All in the next week.
So, well, if it happens, we will talk about it 1 week from tonight. Everyone, if you're not subscribed to Bobby's Substack, you gotta subscribe. Bobby, I watch your morning briefs every morning when I can, when I'm not in studio with somebody else. And they're like the best. They are like 5 minutes. Your voice is calm. It's like more. I always think of it as like morning Bobby, and I get night Bobby, which is like the fiery Bobby after a long day.
Yeah, sorry.
Just think of it. I love it. I love it so much. SL, thank you, Bobby and Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you, SL. Thank you all in the chat. You guys are the best. Like, I'm always looking off screen because I'm reading what you guys are saying. And sometimes Patrick will say something funny and I'll like chuckle. That's what I'm laughing at, is your comments in the chat. You guys are all the best. Bobby, take care.
Yeah, no, thanks guys. Yep. And if you subscribe to my Substack, you'll get the morning briefing by 06:30 every morning, Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. That's when I try to get it out. So
yep, I have no idea how you do that, but amazing.
Used to getting up early.
I guess so. Thanks, Bobby. See y'all.
No problem. Thanks, everyone.